This presentation is setting Agile mindset in education. It is important that we become more agile as the education and the world is transforming and that we are able to adapt quickly. So to get there, this is an introduction section where it lays definition and foundation about what Agile approach is. What is Agile? To be agile is the ability to think and understand quickly. Agile is less about the methods, but it is about agile teams and environment and culture that we can create for a team to learn how to be agile. There's a really good quotation from Charles Darwin that it is neither the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. So it is important to think about these things before we approach the rest of the slides. So often when you're leading an institution or when you're a project manager or when you're in your classroom, you are motivated to bring changes to better deliver to our students and meet their needs, and so many different reasons that we are seeking changes because we as educators constantly want to improve. And often, not just in education, when you ask who wants change, everybody wants change for the better to advance human condition. When you ask again, less people, but when you ask who wants to lead the change, it is a difficult task and you run into a lot of barriers. And if you're agile manager, it is important that you think about what these barriers are, and your job is really to remove or lower this barrier for rest of the team so that the project can be carried out more fluently and more efficiently. So we can go over those things in other sections. Agile methodology or Agile approach came from software industry, and it is really good to lay foundation about distinction between characteristics of industrial work versus characteristics of knowledge work. And in the next slide, I will be going over how this relates to education as well. In the industrial work, work is visible, work is stable, emphasis is on process efficiency, more structure with centralized decision. It has a defined task, command and control, strict standards, focus on quality, measure performance to defined standards, minimize costs of workers for a task. And when you move into more knowledge-based work, work often is invisible. Work is constantly changing. Emphasis on fast value delivery is expected many times. Less structure with decentralized decision is something that we can often observe. Understanding the task, giving autonomy to people or your staff, continuous innovation, focus on value, inspect and adapt, and treat workers as appreciating assets, not cost. So these are some of the things as we move from industrial work to knowledge work when we look at the business side. And you can see the evolution that which side is more relevant to the agile and flexibility and the adaptable thinking. And carrying that on to the education world, we have two clear distinctive projects. We have projects that are predictive and projects that are more adaptive. The predictive one may be more relatable to the industrial-based work. The work is more defined and it has focuses on analyzing and planning the future in detail with known risks. Some of the examples are textbook adoptions, planning for a new course, end of the year showcase to highlight student work. Adaptive work is something that changes quickly and you need to adapt. When the need of the project changes, adapt to change quickly. Example of those are innovative initiatives, various unexpected and/or emergency situations. Agile was not developed in a single day, and people across the globe felt the need for the adaptive project management because they saw that the traditional waterfall method lacked flexibility. So we're going to go into more of those things, but then you can also see how the industrial work versus the knowledge-based work, we can relate to both of those because there are still characteristics in the educational projects that is relevant to some of those aspects. But I just wanted you to see different categories or different types of work, and also which methodology you need to use Agile methodology to effectively make the process more efficient. So it didn't happen overnight. The process itself took process and history. It has a long history, and I can show that later as well. But traditionally, waterfall methodology has been used, and it has been evolving more into the need for Agile methodology. Basically, what that means is in the waterfall, it's a more linear stages of getting the project done. It involves more upfront planning and in-depth documentation. Involves more contract negotiation, and it's best for simple and unchanging projects. And also it involves close project manager involvement. So less autonomy in the waterfall, but you can see in the diagram that it's more linear. And often what happens is that you don't get to the next step until you are done with the step before that. The difference is that Agile is a continuous cycle of improvement. You go through each one and you quickly adapt, and each of these stages often has feedback, and you survey people to get better and what the needs are. So you have to assess that constantly for continuous improvement cycle. And it's a small, high functioning and collaborative team. It has multiple methodologies, and these processes sometimes can happen simultaneously. So many times you don't have to wait for the first step to move on to the second step. First and second step can happen simultaneously. And it also has flexible and continuous evolution and customer involvement. So we talked a lot about previously industrial versus knowledge-based work, and then different types of work that's been more traditional with the predictive, and then now it's becoming with the changes in technology and other things that we have to adapt quickly. So that's pretty much how we got here and how we started using educational things and adapting Agile methodology in education. And if you look at the history and evolution of Agile approach, it's pretty similar that in 1970, the more used methodology naturally was more waterfall methodology. And then in 1991, Scrum methodology was conceived, and we will be going over that in part 2 after the introductory section. And the process itself was codified in 1995. And then in 2001, Agile Manifesto was created. Moving on, these methodologies became more and more widely used. And in 2010, it was spread over outside of the IT, and Agile accepted within IT as well. And other methodology, it evolved into Kanban and other variations. So the people started hybridizing different tools and developing their own, because we have all these theories of how these techniques and strategies work, but you have to make your own, and it needs to fit in your institution. So basically you're adapting other things that make it fit better. So you might take Agile approach plus other methodologies, or you may develop your own methodologies or strategies that make the process more effective. And carrying on, it was also used in business, and now it became more embedded in other industries, including education. So in summary, the Agile Manifesto is that what is preferred is that individuals and interactions over process and tools is more emphasized in Agile Manifesto. Working product over comprehensive documentation, custom collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. These are some of the characteristics of the Agile Manifesto. That is, while there is value in the items on the right, process itself as an Agile Manifesto values the ones that are on the left more. So taking Agile Manifesto and adapting to education. So individual and interaction over process and tools. Tools may help you complete a project, but it is the people who undertake and implement the projects. Delivering service and program over comprehensive documentation is valued. The focus is on delivering service to our students more often, but it could be parents or staff, depending on the projects, to the user. So basically delivering the value to the user, whoever that is, in increment throughout the life cycle of the project. So it's, again, it's different than waterfall that you have a delivery at the end, but maybe in oftentimes the delivery can happen in different increments and smaller increment, which makes the project more tangible to accomplish in Agile manifesto. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. The team and the customer work together to evolve and develop the product, often using design thinking. Finally, responding to change over following a plan, enabling change incorporation rather than placing emphasis on following plans on potentially outdated data. So adaptability and responding to change is very important. So there are principles in Agile methodology or Agile approach. It can be broken down into 4 important sections, which are self-organizing teams, continuous attention to excellence, simplicity is essential, reflecting on improvement, and some of those principles has emphasis on satisfaction, delivering outcome, collaborating daily, welcoming changing requirements, having motivating individuals, and having face-to-face conversation. So it's more frequent interaction, even if it's shorter. So traditionally you might have had long meetings, but it maybe only met once a month, but that's not the Agile methodology because things are quickly changing. You have to have quick face-to-face, often we call it stand-up meetings, measuring progress and promoting sustainable development. So those are the guiding Agile principles